What's up, Todd?
Hey, gentlemen, love the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
TJ, there's an offensive coordinator position open maybe next year in Detroit if you're interested.
No thanks.
All right.
No thanks.
My concern is this. Goff keeps stumbling the next 4 games. Lions win the division, lose the first round of the playoffs. I'm just not comfortable with him as our quarterback next year. He's been responsible for 9 turnovers in the last 4 games, and it's just so concerning. And it even seems like they've dialed back the offense a bit because they're concerned of how he's playing. It just doesn't seem right with him right now. And look, there's a backup quarterback that was a heck of a college football player. What was he? 27 touchdowns and 2 turnovers his senior year, 450 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's a heck of an athlete. I mean, have you seen him in practice, TJ? I don't know. I'm concerned about this quarterback situation.
All 2 weeks of his practice?
Yes, his clock was just turned on.
Look, Hendon Hooker certainly not going to be anytime this year where we see him even come close to getting an opportunity. No, I think it's fair that there's a little bit of concern about Jared Goff.
Yes.
And we talked about it a little bit on Friday's show, too. The bottom line, though, is, you look at really overall the last, 23 games now. It's been pretty damn good, right? It's been pretty damn good. Now, there's been a couple stinkers in there, too. And I think the major concern with most of us is, like you mentioned, the turnovers, right? Yep. Just way too many turnovers, especially this point of the season where teams don't have the same level of you can't be making the same mistakes and still everything's good, we're fine. Like your margin of error is not as big as it was earlier this season when you could have afforded to make some of those mistakes. This December football, right? This is where you have to start gearing up and playing your best. And Jared Goff really, the last couple games, last week against the Saints was fine. But 3 out of the last 4 now, it's been a concern, right? It has. And I'm not on the train that I don't want Jared Goff to be my quarterback. That's not the question. The question with a lot of people is the future, right?
Right.
The future is not, do we like Jared Goff? I think I admire Jared Goff. I think he's done a hell of a job kind of turning his career around and turning this football team around. The question is, do you want to pay Jared Goff $50 million a year to be your quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years, right? And that's a good debate. I don't want to sidetrack and get into that debate right now, but that's where I think these next 4 games in the playoffs, this is going to be, I think, a chance for a resume builder for Jared Goff. An audition, so to say, right? If you make a run, and I'm not saying you got to win the Super Bowl, but if you win a playoff game and you make a run, maybe you make the championship game. Right now you're looking at this guy saying, okay, I'd rather see what we've got. I'd rather see him play in the big games and play well in the big games. And maybe now you're forcing you to overpay a little bit. I'd rather do that, but at least you know what you got, right? I just feel like there's still a lot of questions of, do we know what we have? We know what we have when he's really good. It's the times when yesterday where, average games, we see what this team looks like. That's a concern. Well, but I would say,
I wouldn't even say he was average.
Okay, fair. For his standards, fair. Below average for his standards, for how we've seen him play the majority of this year and the majority of the second half of last year, right?
No doubt.
I would just say to people, try not to overreact too much. You know what I mean? And this has become a trend a little bit, which is concerning. But what I've seen over the last 23 games, I still go back to, I think Jared Goff is a very mentally tough guy. I think he's a resilient guy. And it would not shock me this week. I know it's a short week, but Saturday he goes out and has one of his best games, right? And kind of silences everybody. Like that's kind of the pattern I've seen with Jared Goff. And if that's what you get with your quarterback, guess what, guys? Look around the NFL. See how many quarterbacks are giving you, yin and yang games every single week, right? Jared Goff's been pretty damn good, pretty consistently for a year and a half. So I know there's a debate to be had there. We're probably going to talk about it to death in the offseason.
Yes.
I want to see what these next 4 games look like, especially.
Well, this is when players go out and make money. If you're able to go out in the big games, win divisions, win playoff games, make a run in the playoffs, that's when you make money. And I brought this up earlier. Last night, Jalen Hurts, they showed his numbers. And it just cherry picking some numbers. 10 interceptions, 5 fumbles. Jared Goff, 10 interceptions, 5 fumbles. So there are some comparables. Now, he is...
Look at Josh Allen. Turnover machine. You know what I mean?
But the question then becomes, if it's not him, what is the future plan? And that's a discussion for later in the year or in the offseason. But if for the last 4 weeks he has not played great football, you could say down in New Orleans he played pretty good. And in the final couple of minutes of the initial game with Chicago, he played really good. But leading up to that, 3 interceptions, that was, they put him behind the 8 ball or fumbles. I can't remember which game it was. But if you were to space those 4 games out, and I'm only asking this question, instead of them being,
bunched together
in the middle of the season when you're trying to seal the division, but they were spread throughout the course of the year and then sprinkled in some of his finer performances.
Yeah.
Would we be as concerned about him right now if your record ends up being the same? You're 9-4, you still got a 2-game lead, but instead of having 4, turds in a row.
Yeah. No, if you go 3 games, 3 good games and then 1 kind of stinker, and then 3 good games and then 1 kind of stinker.
Right, it's a different conversation.
That's right. That's ball, right? And yeah, that's where I think the concern is coming from right now because they are bunched together. Because it does seem like
it's getting to crunch time.
It seems like it's become a trend right now, which I think is
the trend before that was opposite.
Right, yeah. But we always say, and you've always stressed, John, to me, football really starts Thanksgiving and after.
Yes,
and since then he's been pretty bad.
For his standards, I think, everything goes into it, and there was a game where coach wasn't happy with the receivers. Now, we don't know what their routes are supposed to be, right? But, yes, I think, and everything around him has been below average, right? It hasn't just been Jared Goff. Everything.
Well, yesterday, you could pick, they missed an extra point. They had too many penalties, drop balls, miscut. It was poor coaching decisions, right? If you ask me as well. The 4th and 10 going for it. Now, it ended up not costing them that interception because the interception and the return got the penalty, so they started off at like the 12-yard line.
Yeah.
But going for it on 4th and 10, I thought was absurd.
Yeah, nothing really surprises me with Dan Campbell anymore.
No, 4th and 5,
that was whatever. The interceptions yesterday didn't really affect the game, right?
Because, that one didn't because of the penalty.
Yeah, and it was basically an arm punt, right?
Yes.
It didn't really affect the game.
Right.
The last one, right, it didn't matter. The one that really hurt, though, was the fumble.
The fumble. Fumble could have changed the game. All right, 248-539-9797.